Thank you. Now, we will go to what is maybe an uncertain future for the Board of Supervisors. What is your opinion of the ballot measures that qualify to be voted on that would establish a part-time Board of Supervisors? And we'll start with Mr. Beggs.
Well, I have to tell you, I understand why voters are mad. You have a right to be. There's absolutely been some outrageous abuses on the County Board of Supervisors. I think that there needs to be full disclosure on the salaries. The advertised salary for the County Board of Supervisors is $150,000 a year, but the Board of Supervisors' average compensation package is actually $270,000. That's outrageous. I understand why voters are mad. There needs to be clear transparency. If that policy passes and the voters decide that the County Board of Supervisors should become full-time, that is the will of the people. That's the democratic process. I can certainly live with that. I believe that a Board of Supervisor role is a full-time role, but I also think that the compensation package should realistically reflect the role of a public servant, not just a way to milk the taxpayer for compensation and perks. I believe all compensation packages should be fully disclosed and there should be absolutely transparent. I understand the outrage.
Thank you. Mr. Ramos.
Yeah, when this first started being debated, I got some calls, and now that it qualified for the November ballot, people have asked me, and I tell them, I says, I decided to run for County Board of Supervisors, not for the pay, not for full-time, part-time, or any pay. It's because I really have a desire to see this county move forward. And if people are getting elected because of the pay, well, maybe they're running for office for the wrong reasons. And also, in November, if the people, the constituents of the county, vote for this initiative, it should be a wake-up call to the politicians in San Bernardino County to start working together to drive the economy. The jobs that need to be created, we have high unemployment rates. People need to start working together, not so much of their own visions, but the vision of the people that want to see a driving economy, where jobs are present, where small business owners are able to sell their products. We have to be able to look at these things. And again, if this ballot measure passes, it's not whether it's part-time, full-time, or no pay. It's a wake-up call for people to start working together to create a better environment for business growth within the county.
Thank you. Mr. Derry.
Certainly. Are we changing orders on this? 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 3, 2, 1?
Well, it's kind of a random thing going back and forth.
James always going to be in the middle.
No, he's going to start.
You want the trade spot? Sure. The voters have a right.
The voters have the right to a decent microphone system. Just kidding, I know everybody's trying hard. If the voters decide to pass the measure in November, I'll live by it. It's going to be more difficult to spend the time that I have spent with you. Many of the questions in the measure have some legal questions to them that I think will be challenged. The one thing that won't be challenged is the salary. The voters have an absolute right to set the salary of the Board of Supervisors. But let's get back to the perks that were discussed. When I ran for office to eliminate a $26,000 perk that the Board of Supervisors gave to itself and to all elected officials in the county. I ran against that to repeal it. And by April of the next year after I was elected, we repealed it. The Board of Supervisors also recently reduced its pension or its benefits again. Now, these benefits were all approved out in the open and public. As a matter of fact, the salary for the Board of Supervisors was set by the voters. I don't really like the way it was set. I thought they traded, there was a trade-off for term limits, and I think that's what the voters saw instead of a pay increase. But I wasn't on the board at the time. I would have voted against it. But let's face some real facts. The only person that's talked about changing the county at the Board of Supervisors up until last election has been me. I've kept the benefits for elected board members. I've brought forward a sunshine ordinance to open up all the public records that have been hidden from you and the press for 20 plus years because of the shenanigans that have gone on in the county. And that made me very unpopular with some of my colleagues. I had to jam that thing through over the objections of 4 people. They wouldn't make it public, but they were fighting me behind the scenes tooth and nail as hard as they could because I was doing the right thing. They didn't want their records published. That's the kind of thing that's been happening in San Bernardino County. Now, if you want to go along, get along supervisor, who's not willing to take on those challenges, don't vote for me. I'm going to take on those challenges and fight the good fight, and fight for open government in reality, not just by talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we'll have the next question with Mr. Ramos answering. How would you prioritize spending the county's $4 billion budget, considering the budget challenges that there are, so that Big Bear Valley gets its fair share, which somebody mentioned earlier? And how do you define what Big Bear Valley's fair share is?
Well, certainly, the $4 billion, close to $4 billion budget that the County Board of Supervisors, San Bernardino County has, most of that is restricted funds that goes into different administration of different services. It comes down to the discretionary income within the budget, and that's that $457 million that actually could be spent on different things. And how to make sure that Big Bear Valley gets its share is to make sure that you're following those property taxes to make sure that those dollars stay here. You got special districts in Fawnskin, 53B, you got Zone 70 up in Sugarloaf for the different snow plowing. But we have to make sure that that money's there and allocated for it. And if there's a difference in some of the fees that are being paid, where some have to pay twice as much as others, there has to be someone looking into those things to make sure that you're getting what it is you're paying for. And so it comes down to that discretionary income and funding those things, but also having oversight and being engaged in the community to understand what those topics are. Those topics like sewer rates, those topics like snow plowing, making sure that people's voices are being heard. So when you do have that discretionary income as a county board of supervisor, you're putting it into the right areas that are going to benefit the community. Those are some of the areas that we need to discuss.
Thank you. Mr. Derry.
Well, let's be clear. Of the $457 million mentioned by my colleague, that's called discretionary. 75% of that is public safety. That's police and fire services. That's the public defender. That's the district attorney's office. I don't find those to be very discretionary. Public safety has to be the first priority for our communities. We have the state of California sending more parolees down, releasing them. Governor Brown's releasing more people into our communities, and some of them are going to land in Big Bear. And while he opposed that budget, the governor signed it, it's passed. They've provided us some funding from the state for extra probation officers, but as the state of California usually does, I expect that funding to disappear in a short time, because they're going to run into another budget deficit next year. So when it comes to discretionary funding, it's very limited. What I have done is increase funding for workforce investment board programs in Big Bear. We have more job training programs now. We almost had none. We've used discretionary funds for nonprofits in these communities such as Doves to provide for real improvements and real direct service to the community. Because let's face it, the county doesn't have the resources to do all this alone. And we've created private-public partnerships to expand services. The other thing we've done is actually partnered with cities. The City of Big Bear Lake and the Resort Association of the County of San Bernardino have partnered together to provide funding to bring the tour of California back to Big Bear in May. While it's a limited economic impact, it certainly is going to have a major impact on how this community is marketed around the world. One of the growing areas of our one growth area in our economy is tourism, and tourism from not just other parts of California, but from other parts of the world. We need to expand those opportunities, and Tour of California is a perfect opportunity for us to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley.
In prioritizing the county's budget, public safety is probably paramount. You have fire concerns up here, law enforcement issues. That is one of the crucial roles that the county plays. But also in this economy, creating jobs is absolutely essential. And if there are any opportunities where the county can provide an avenue for new economic growth, that has to be one of the driving priorities for the county. We also have to operate in a fiscally sound manner. We need to have a balanced budget, and we need to live within our means, and we need to provide the best services we can with efficiencies in the county. As far as bringing back a fair share of dollars into this community, one of the funds that you pay is a half-cent sales tax to Measure I. That is a pot of money that comes back for road projects. A portion of that comes back into the mountain areas. That's part of that Desert Mountain Committee committee that I chaired years ago. I believe it's very important as the supervisor to be the advocate for the unincorporated communities up here to make sure you're getting your fair share of the road dollars coming back for maintenance and snow removal and the vital ability to move in and out of this valley so you have economic opportunities with tourism and just day-to-day living up here.
Okay, here's another budget question, and we'll start with Mr. Jerry on this one. What can the county do about meeting special needs of people in the Big Bear Valley, such as the elderly, the poor, and the disabled, helping them with housing, food, utilities, and medical needs?
Well, I think you missed one, and that's snow removal. We have,
We're talking about individuals with special needs.
that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The county, through my office, has provided $10,000 over the past 3 years to help seniors and live-ins escape from the berms that end up on your front yards and help dig them out, which you all know about. Seniors and the disabled don't have the ability to go out and shovel their own snow, so we've been providing the funding for that. Like I said, we've been partnering with nonprofits and other organizations. We provide funding for a number of organizations in the county and the region here. I mentioned Doves earlier. There's also the Family Services Association of Redlands, which does provide services up here. There's the organization out in Lake Arrowhead, which provides youth counseling. So we are very active in promoting and bringing those services to this community. We've got a tremendous issue with the hospital here. Their tax is about to expire, and they're going to be low on funds. And we need to work together to make sure we pass the revenue resources necessary for the local hospital here. And I'll work together with you to do that. I think the best part about the job has been helping change people's lives, and we've been able to do that. It's been an exciting time in the county. We're going through these budget times, but I think when we figure out this budget this year, we're going to find that we aren't in as bad a shape as some people have said. I'm not saying it's perfect, but there's some choices we can make that'll free up a lot more dollars. One other aspect is community development block grants. Those are funds provided to local communities by the federal government. There was an effort by 3 of my colleagues on the board to eliminate those funds and roll them into the general fund. I'm opposed to that. This was a program started in the Nixon administration. Many of those funds go to nonprofit organizations directly, and I'm going to fight on that issue to make sure that those resources come back to Big Bear and don't get sucked into the county general fund and never be seen again.
Okay. Mr. Bagley this time.
Well, very good. One of the roles the County Board of Supervisors play is we do administer the CalFresh, which is the formerly known as the food stamp program, CalWorks and Medi-Cal. Those are items that are under jurisdiction. They're mandated by the state, but it's also important to make sure that your fair share of dollars come back up here. I tend to believe that faith-based organizations like church foundations are absolutely essential in taking care of the needy in any local community. I think local people have a better sense of how to really address those needs, and if there were funds or discretionary funds available, that would be one of my interests. The most important thing for taking care of the needy is simply to make sure that we have a vibrant, robust economy, so we're all doing better.
Okay, Mr. Ramos. And
Yeah, currently the budget with San Bernardino County, close to that $4 billion. Out of that, about 39% of that goes to human services. But a lot of times when you start to see programs getting cut, it's those that people rely on, people that really need those services in order to move forward. And it's different. Again, the community is unique here in the Big Bear Mountain with different needs that are there. Now the total discretionary budget is $2.2 billion. And that comes from Proposition 172 money that goes to public safety. And also, through a realignment back in 1991, set aside money, $168 million, to go towards health and welfare for different things. And then out of that, the 457 is true discretionary income that you could use to actually combat domestic violence, help senior citizens out in different communities. The jobs and the resources that are here should be no different than anybody requesting those services down in San Bernardino Valley. If you need those services, you're just as important as anybody else, and you deserve those services because you're paying for those. But also what needs to happen is that we need to put together a one-stop shop where these services are at, so people know how to get to them. And we can't really rely on the county budget to start to fund some of these projects. We have to be willing to get involved as leaders to help support nonprofits in raising income to make sure that they offset these things. Getting in support of the Seroptimus clubs, different things that are funding counselors for schools, doves, domestic violence. We need to get behind those issues. But it's not just simply using county money. Sometimes you got to use your own money and put yourself forward to make sure the community can succeed. And again, the needs are just as important here as anybody else throughout the county.